All right, we seriously got to talk about Raw here. I got to wrap the show up. This is retarded.
I'm tired.
Orton and his crew were actually in the ring. So we saved 10 minutes here. He did a promo about the cage match on Sunday, said Dave should be living in fear, because he was going to kill him. Said he was going to flip a coin tonight, and either Cody or DiBiase was going to face Batista in a cage match. So, flipped the coin, ended up being Cody. So, he was the big loser this evening. But before the match could start, Flair came out, dancing and shimming like a madman. And he said he wanted Orton tonight. Orton said, "Do not know what retired means." And Flair said, "I don't want a match. I want to fight. I want to fight you in the parking lot where the last man standing is the winner." And he gave him a hard time, and Orton finally said, "I accept." So Flair immediately threw down the mic and started running the parking lot, where he proceeded to wait apparently for 2 hours.
Yes.
Orton promised it would be a night he would never forget. And, well, actually he did forget it after being kicked in the head, but that's later.
I was distracted during this segment because I saw what I think is my new favorite sign of all time, which is Orton was pissed off and Flair was up dancing on the ramp, and they cut to a shot of I think it was a shot of Orton, and over his shoulder you could read a sign saying, "Orton, here's a woo." And I cackled and I howled. That's fucking funny. Very clever. And I tried to think of my favorite signs of all time. And the two that came to mind were the guy who just held up one saying, "Let this be a sign," which is funny because it is. It's a sign. And then another one, and this is probably not as funny out of context, but there are two signs. One guy held up a sign saying, "I drove the white Hummer." And the guy next to him had a sign reading, "No, I drove the white Hummer." And that's probably not funny unless you realize this is like 2 years after that stupid angle and it had never been solved. And they showed up one night with these signs. But
not nearly as funny.
No, but Orton here's a woo. That is classic.
That is a pretty good one.
That is fucking classic.
Actually, on this show, there was a sign I liked better, which was in the next match, in fact.
But
Batista and Cody, where a fan held up a sign that said, "Unleash the Furry."
Did she unleash the furry? That was a good one, too, although in a different way.
And he was so proud of this sign. It was in big block letters, and he was shaking it in the air and smiling like, my sign is on TV!
Yeah.
Unleash the Furry!
Well, furries are scary.
Yeah.
But, yeah. I was annoyed, though, at the end of Orton's promo, when he said his line, and I wrote this down, he said it would be, "A night you never forget, because you won't be able to remember." Okay, you...
Don't get started.
All I know is I thought for sure Orton had botched his line badly.
No.
And then Michael Cole repeated it. Whoever wrote that shit needs to be fired now.
Anyway, Batista unleashed the Furry on Cody and beat him. That will never not be funny. Unleash the Furry. Come on. Then we had Show backstage, and Dave did not see this as I did, but this was so damn stupid. We had Vickie saying she'd signed Show and Miz against Cena and a partner.
Right.
He said he didn't like this. Miz was a fool. So she had a black bag. She said she had the names of all the wrestlers on the roster inside, and whichever name Big Show drew, that was going to be the lucky partner of John Cena. So he pulled out her name, and it was Chavo.
Right.
And Vickie cackled, and Chavo cackled. And Show was not so bemused, and he said, "If you get in my way, I'll kill you." And they were strongly suggesting that this was a plot by Vickie and Chavo.
Well, it's seen rational all the time. You have Show and Miz, who hate Cena. You have Chavo, who is a wicked heel, who is, my thought was they would start pulling out a bunch of names, and they would all be Chavo. And their plot was to trap John Cena 3-on-1 here. That's where I thought that's where I thought this was going.
Okay, so if that's the case, Vickie's in charge.
Right.
Why didn't you just say, tonight, it's Miz and the Big Show against Cena and Chavo? Why did they waste God knows how long that afternoon getting 30 pieces of paper and writing Chavo on every single one and putting them in a fucking bag?
For the showmanship of it.
Jesus
For theatrics.
Christ. If I ever have that much fucking spare time, you guys can yell at me about no back issues. We had Maurice and Beth against Kelly's ass and Mickie James, which was, I've seen worse. Although I could not believe that in this match, Mickie was the one who never tagged in.
Yes.
And Kelly worked the entire match and got pinned by Maurice. Why? I don't know. What this set up, I have no idea. What the point of it was, except to show Kelly's ass, I have no idea.
All I know is that when they went to the finish, Maurice and Kelly were down in the ring, and Beth ran in, and she was supposed to be hit by something with Mickie off the top rope, except Kelly and Maurice were still laying right in the middle of the ring. and she had to like kick them out of the way. It was bad stuff.
Carlito and Primo against Matt and Regal, not for the tag titles. It was basic. Got the heat on Primo. Matt kept tagging himself in. Matt finally fucked up and accidentally hit Regal, and Carlito pinned him. And then Regal and Matt nearly got into a fight, which led to them asking Vickie backstage for another shot. And she said, "Why should I give you another shot?" And they said, "We've got a plan," which caused her to snort and giggle because she is, in fact, a pig now.
And Matt and Regal looked at each other and kind of rolled their eyes. And it was supposed to be, oh my God, she snorted. But it came off as, oh my God, they're doing a stupid snorting angle. So, yeah, that was bad. The match, it was kind of funny watching Matt and Regal call spots and the other one not do what they said. Was just comedy. When Matt called a double elbow and Regal hit a punch instead and Matt was angry. Maybe it's because I've been in that scenario many times, but that made me laugh. And then I talked about Jeff Hardy actually running in to save Ray on SmackDown. There was for the hot tag, William Regal tagged in and then ran across the ring to try and prevent Primo from tagging out. He failed. Carlito made a horrible comeback, and
Carlito was horrible this evening.
He was falling down a lot, and then he won, and that pissed me off. But what can you do?
Flair met with Batista, and we had a truly pathetic promo from him. I love Ric Flair, but this promo made him seem like such a sad old man. Talking about how for 35 years he did this, he wants to keep doing it, he misses it. He went to bed every night and woke up the next day hoping he could be Ric Flair again. And, God, it was depressing.
Well, he could have been more depressing and said, oh, by the way, I also need the money.
Well, he could have said that
so
as
it could have been worse. All I know is I watched this and I thought, Ric Flair's lisp is way, way, way worse than Jack Swagger's. And yet he has done fine as a talker. So Swagger's going to be okay.
Well, he's also older.
I don't think it's new. I don't think he started lisping yesterday.
He's got jowls in the way now.
There's that.
So we had Miz and Show against Chavo and Cena. This actually had a shocking amount of heat. Maybe I missed something somewhere. I still have no idea how Miz got to 6-0. Wasn't he 4-0 like the last time we checked?
He is counting promos and stuff. I don't know.
Oh, so now you punk a guy. Well, I mean, he'd always done the promo, but I still thought it was 4-0.
I don't know.
Anyway, they played up that Cena couldn't get the STF on Show, and Cena made a comeback. Show tagged himself in, chokeslammed Cena. Ref hadn't seen the tag, so Show said, "Miz, tag me." Miz refused, so Show punched him out.
That moment was so fucking great.
And then Chavo pinned Miz.
Yes.
Why?
I don't have any earthly idea. As noted earlier, coming out of the segment where Vickie put the match together, I thought the heels all had a plot. Apparently their plot here was to get Chavo a win through whatever they had to do.
I just don't understand why, after all these weeks of building up Miz, apparently for a match with Cena, I think this was the first time they were actually even in the ring together, and they weren't involved in the finish?
No.
Chavo and the Miz? This was just stupid.
No, I don't know. I have no idea what anyone's goals were in reality or in character. I have no idea what's going on with this segment. I also don't know how many times we can see John Cena lift the Big Show and Jerry Lawler is still incredulous. It's like every time he sees them, it's like it's the first time.
Well, for Lawler, maybe it is. MVP and Kofi had he's short-term memory.
I see.
Much like myself. MVP and Kofi had a meeting backstage. They respect each other, but then things got heated. Not heated enough. So the match started and nobody cared. And then they started getting into it. Then they got more into it. Mm-hmm. Then they were really into it when they were trading near falls, and MVP finally went for the playmaker. Kofi reversed it, ended up on his shoulders, victory roll, pin, 1, 2, 3. Kofi had this huge celebration. MVP was despondent, but realized he'd gotten fucked, basically, and handed over the belt. And they played this up like two wrestlers had a battle for a championship belt. One wrestler defeated the other via pinfall and was the new champion. They let him celebrate for like 2 minutes. This was all fucking awesome.
Everything about this was great. The match, as noted, no one cared about it at first, but they totally got into it by the end. They had plenty of time to work with. Both guys looked good. They had an easy-to-follow, clean finish with the pinfall. And the only thing I didn't like about this was MVP's first reaction was shock. That's fine. Second reaction was sportsmanship. He presented the belt to Kofi. He applauded, and he left the ring so the new champion could celebrate. I'm fine with that. And then they cut to a shot of him on the ramp, and he had this like smirk on his face, this smile, and he was like, "Oh well, I'll just get it back next week." It's like, well, he's clearly he's over this whole loss already.
Well, maybe he's confident, but maybe he won't.
So he's going to be another
I
heel
didn't have
turn?
a problem with it.
It annoyed me.
I didn't have a problem with it. There was too much good stuff to nitpick over something like that. So then we had the Vickie come out with buckets of slop, and actually, let me talk about DiBiase and Orton first, because I don't even want to talk about the slop segment. DiBiase met with him and told him not to do this thing with Flair, because who knows, anything can happen. Maybe he'll get hurt. And Orton said, it's nothing but a warm-up for Sunday, and DiBiase said, that's what Cody said, and walked off. And Orton thought, So anyway, the floor is yours. I don't give a fuck about the slop.
Well, there was slop involved. Vickie came out with slop, then Santino came out and he threatened to slop Vickie, but of course Matt and Regal came out to make the save. So Santino did a helicopter slop job. Slop got everywhere. William Regal took a righteous slopping, and he had it all over his face, and he stood there selling it like a pro. Then they killed the man, and then a strange thing happened where Vickie had Santino unconscious, and so she poured slop onto his penis. Don't know why. That's what she did. Then she poured it on his face and all over him, and then she partied some more, and then she left. And yeah, a strange and not a good reason to buy the pay-per-view segment.
No
buys.
Hated it. By the way, there was a Bring Back Kennedy sign that was still on the air after almost 2 hours. First off, who are you?
Maybe it was Kennedy.
Actually, you know who loves Kennedy and was real pissed off that he got fired? Mark.
I have not talked to Sean, but Sean loved Kennedy too.
How?
Well,
these things baffle me.
He speaks loudly.
And?
That's what they want to see.
I'm looking for redeeming qualities here.
That's what they like.
Then we had the Orton deal in the parking lot. They had a brawl. I thought this brawl was fucking awesome. It was two guys not doing a whole hell of a lot.
No.
They were very slow, but everything they did had a meaning behind it. It was like you see a lot of brawls in TNA, and it's just guys going nutty and hitting and going really fast and getting all blown up. These guys were just like almost not moving at all. But every now and then Flair would stop and chop the shit out of him to the point where Orton's chest was bleeding.
Yeah.
Punched him in the face, threw him into shit, and vice versa. It was just such a great brawl.
He had awesome intensity.
They brawled out to the ringside area, and Flair ended up putting him in a figure four on the announcer's table.
That was great.
Because a figure four on wood, you see,
hurts more
than anywhere else.
Oh, the mat's cushioned.
So he put him in this figure four, and of course out came Legacy, and they beat up Flair and threw him into the cage, and Orton went in there and told him to shut and lock the door, which they did. So Orton's beating the shit out of him, and this brings out Batista, who is now 40 and muscle-bound, and he didn't even try to climb the cage. He just knew there was no hope. He should have at least tried, and they could have thrown a chair at his fingers or something like that, so he knew there was no way to get in. But Orton gave Flair the RKO and started yelling at Dave, and Dave was yelling back about how he was going to break him in half. And then suddenly his eyes grew wide because he knew there was trouble coming. And sure enough, Orton backed up and punted Flair in the face, killed him, and then went face-to-face with Batista. But, of course, there's a steel cage in the way, which is their stipulation on Sunday, and Batista could not lay a finger on him. And I thought this whole angle, from start to finish, was so goddamn great. Just, like, unbelievably great. I loved every moment of it. And, yeah. I mean, it's I don't know how excited I am for the pay-per-view. I guess people will say that in that sense it must not have been that successful. But I'm trying to think of the last match that I was really all that excited for. And I can't. I just feel like I've seen them all a million times. There's nothing new.
Oh, there is that. That's an issue.
But as a go-home angle, I mean, if this had taken place 8 years ago, where all these feuds were brand new, this would have been a work of art. And in some ways, it really was a work of art. It
still was. It just you're taking it in context. If you put it in a different context, it would be even better. But yes, it was tremendous, start to finish. There are only two things I would change. One I freely admit is a nitpick. The other thing is kind of important, and that's that Orton set up for this punt, and Dave knew it was coming. All the fans knew it was coming. They were shrieking and screaming and hollering, and everyone was scared. And then Orton did the worst punt he's ever done. And after kicking Vince in the head and kicking Shane in the head and Hunter in the head, he drove by, almost whiffed Flair. Flair was like, shit, he just kicked me. Better sell. So he started selling. And then Orton landed with his stare down with Dave, and that part was great, but the punt itself was almost botched, and that would have sucked. That would have been a true tragedy. Second one's a nitpick. We're going to say it anyway. They're doing it a lot in this moment, and throughout the show, and I think on SmackDown a few times too. Their new trick is, it used to be whenever anyone would throw a punch, they would cut the camera, so you'd have trouble seeing what's going on. The new trick is to zoom in and out at every opportunity. And after a while, it was driving me insane. So stop doing that, everyone.
I didn't even notice.
I noticed. I may be the only one.
So I thought the kick looked all right. I've seen a lot worse. And it doesn't even matter because that finisher is the most over finisher that they've got. Everyone knows if it's hit, a guy is out for a long period of time because they haven't killed it yet.
That is true.
So you don't even have to kick the guy anymore. You just have to kick the guy, and that's that. So if that made any sense.
Let's just go home.
Come on, everybody. It's an hour and 20 minutes into the show. I'm done. So I'm going to play one last song here. And in fact, it's called Kick in the Head. And we'll wrap it up.